This is John Balik for Ironman Magazine, and I'm having the pleasure here today to be sitting with Mr. America, PhD, Mr. Everything in bodybuilding and science, as far as the science of bodybuilding, Bob Gajda. Bob, welcome.
Oh, glad to be here. It's hard to find, but I guess worth the trip.
Absolutely. I want to start off by really going back into the history of how you got into all of this and when you first discovered a barbell, and what was that like?
Well, it certainly was a different time. We had the concepts of muscle boundness and all those kinds of things. And, you know, I played quarterback for Gordon Tech High School, and the coaches would allow the linemen to do it, and they'd also take wrestling. But no backfield men were allowed to do this, so I got caught lifting weights in my backyard with my buddies, and my coach took me to the church down the street, made me promise in front of the Holy Mother that I would never lift weights at home again. That's the way I got out of it. So I went to the Park District then. At the end of the summer, I showed up, and the coach was bragging about me. I could throw the football 20 yards farther. I was another 5-10 pounds heavier and bigger, faster, stronger, and all lifting weights. And all the guys, when he told them all I did was calisthenics and stuff like that, and throw the football through the tire, that was the ideal at the time. Now we've shifted. We've gone completely the other way.
So the beginning impetus, what was the catalyst was to improve? Obviously, you had to go against the grain here, so you had to be an independent thinker.
Against the belief system. And as a Catholic boy, it's hard to do that.
Right. I never heard the story about having to go to church, but you inventiveness.
Well, that was a Catholic high school coach, and that was a remedy.
So you worked out at the Park District, but what led you to the thought that weights were going to make you better, or you wanted to be stronger, or what was it?
It's the experience itself. You know when you start doing it, and the guys that are doing it, you know. And I'm always reminded of the quote that you always quote with Vince Garanda, that the idea that you look at weights and they all seem dumb, but you got to be smart to use them. Then you look at machines, they seem smart, but you got to be what to use them.
Yeah, what
you got to be what to use them.
Yeah, well, as Vince, the second part was Vince would say that the machines look scientific but aren't.
Yeah.
But still, we're getting down to the basic question. You know, you as a 14, 15-year-old football player, that was a huge step going against what the coach said. So was there a magazine picture or friends that talked you into it, or how did you get into it?
Basically, when I was in 8th grade at St. Boniface Grade School, the Sister Mary Theon gave me a book. It was by a guy by the name of John Cross from Wisconsin. I'll never forget this book. It was Let's Take the Hard Road. And he wrote a sequel to that, was The Hard Road to Manhood, or something in that order. But it was, for a Catholic, it was an ideal situation. It was progressive training. It was Bill Pearl, carte blanche. 3 sets, and here's how you do it.
So it was a bodybuilding book.
It was a bodybuilding book, and it had pictures of Steve Reeves in there. They had pictures of John Gremick in there, Frank Lath. I can remember all the guys. Bill wasn't in there. He was too young, I guess, at the time they did the book. But in any event, that was my inspiration.
So a nun gave you this book.
Yeah.
Now that's completely unbelievable.
Yeah. Those were Franciscan nuns.
Uh-huh.
I pledge allegiance to the Franciscans. They helped to raise me. Well, what morality and virtue I have to come from them.
Well, even more than your morality and virtue, it sets you on a life's path that you're still on.
I think so, yeah. Health and fitness and strength, and don't use drugs, right?
Yeah. And when I first met you was before the Division Street gym, which was your first gym with the YMCA. But let's go back. I know you were in the Air Force before that. After you went from high school playing football in high school, and you were a 3-letter man in high school, correct?
Yes.
So you played football, track?
Well, yeah. I did the basketball. But that at the time of basketball, I wasn't 5'8" yet, so there's 5'8" and under. That was JVs, and we were faster than the tall guys. So it was tall guys and short guys. So those were first subdivisions for height. But now you mix it up.
So, and you were in,
Yeah, in baseball.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, so it was
I
baseball.
played for the Amvets. We won the city championship in baseball out of Humboldt Park.
Okay, so when you left high school, then what was the next step?
I went into the Air Force on my uncle's recommendation. Everything that he promised me came through. I was right in between all the bad affairs, and all I had to do was judo and lift weights, like Ray Rutledge. And I thought it was 4 great years. I recommend it to any guy.
So
Learning
you
and the whole deal. I finished a good amount of college in the time. And during peace, it's a great place to be.
So you used your time in the services. I think I remember you were actually like a physical education instructor of some sort, correct?
And they certified us, and you go to the Kodokan Institute twice, and 58 and 59, and learned judo. Learned Aikido with Tohei, and I learned Masoyama, the guy who used to chop the bull's horns off. He was there, and it was fun. Mifune was the father of judo, and he was 85, Bill, and he'd come out there, and the guys would all tank, but he would do his what they called the Tenduku Renju Hoho, and they would fly over him, and it was like a ritual. It was wonderful. The ritual was great.
And then you were stationed in Alaska? Were you?
No, Thule, Greenland.
Ah, Greenland. I knew it was someplace out of the way.
Yeah, that's where I ran into and became friends with Rock Stonewall, Jesse Stonewall. He's a hell of a bodybuilder. One of the best backs I've ever seen. From lumbars and the whole scheme was there.
So when I met you in about 1962, you were just getting back from the Air Force.
I think so, yeah. 1962, that's when I
Okay.
articulated.
So at that point, of course, I saw you win, I don't know if it was the Mr. Chicagoland or what contest it was, at one of the YMCA's. It was probably Oak Park or Franklin Park, one of the YMCA's. But anyway, that led me to the Division Street Y and a career.
Yeah, when I came out of the Air Force, I actually got recruited by a guy by the name of Bernie Burkhart. He was an osteopath, retired, and I would go as we would work out at Division when I was when I came out of the Air Force. But they offered me the job to be the physical director, so I went to George Williams College and got my degree there, and I'm certified as a YMCA International Secretary too.
Okay,
Not
and
everybody can say that.
I can't, that's for sure.
Well, it didn't matter at a time in history because there was a severe change in the culture of the YMCA. The so-called Black Caucus kind of took over the YMCA, and they wanted to get rid of the hernia factory, and I was a part of that. So here I felt strongly. And over the years, I had to defend myself while I was teaching hoodlums in the inner city how to do karate and lift weights and make them strong supermen, and I would have to go through a whole rationale on that. But when the Black Caucus took over, they wanted Head Start in the handball courts, and they get rid of the weights and all that stuff, and they changed their whole perspective, to be prisoner release. I think that's what it became. The judo instructor we had got his throat cut in front of the place. It just the whole thing changed. So I went to be a school teacher then.
Yeah, the good part of that, I wasn't unfortunately not involved at that time, because my recollection was Division was mostly the space they gave you was a space that was in shambles, and number one, that you and I were definitely in the minority as anybody not of color.
Yeah, that's never been an issue in my life, the color spectrum, but to be singled out by it, and then there are guys that say, well, you should protest. No, it had to happen. I saw it as having to happen. Every ethnic group has to get to its time of pride, and then they have to live with that.
Well, I don't know how, Division probably didn't last more than a year or so, and then Duncan YMCA, which was a much bigger, wealthier, even though it was still in the same general neighborhood, it was had much more money. They recruited you to really build something there.
Yeah, well, that's the why I'm talking about.
Okay.
Division was a stepping stone to that. How I got in to the YMCA work was through Division Street YMCA. That's where Joe Teskey took me and walked me down Polish Broadway, and we would learn to fundraise. It was part of the fundraising. But the funny part of it is, I got plumbing tools. We built all the benches. We bolted them into the floor. Everything was pipe fitted. And so I learned how to do that then. So I started making equipment in those days. And Division, I think they say, still was there when they turned it down.
How
So
did
was Duncan, in the degree.
Duncan had a fantastic weightlifting space in the basement there.
Yeah, I've got photos of that, of the guys working out there.
So how did it come about that you created a weightlifting team that actually challenged the all-powerful Hoffman regime?
Well, I fell in love with Olympic weightlifting, first of all. I mean, I thought it was great. When I won Mr. America, I had this feeling I had accomplished everything I wanted to do. Other competitions were beside the point. That was the one. That's what I trained for. I achieved it. I said, now, what's next? What do I do next? And then I said, team. Team is the next adventure. It's a higher level of consciousness, if you want to go that route. But I just love building, and I continued to do that through my life. Building.
Yeah, you put together a team at that point that was really second to none, and you built it on both the facility that you created and the personality that you brought to that facility.
Thank you.
No, I think that's just a simple truth. The other thing, I want to backtrack a little bit because there's very few people that come out of being, a three-letter high school athlete, accomplished judo and martial arts, then accomplished in bodybuilding. You won everything that was winnable all the way to the Mr. America. And in addition, your Olympic lifting, you were a very talented lifter. At your best at 198, what did you lift in the three lifts then?
Well, I did a 325 press. I did a 280 snatch and a 375 clean and jerk. And I would say the great thing about that, and there are witnesses there, I beat Clyde Emmerich. That was my other dream, to win Mr. America and beat Clyde Emmerich as a 98.
Clyde Emmerich, probably a few years before that, had set the world record at 409 and 409 and 3/4 or something like that. So Bob, it was Clyde Emmerich was and is an icon in the Chicago weightlifting area. Tremendous. So, but Bob, it just shows. I don't think we have had another Mr. America with a combination of lifting talent that and incredible physique that Bob did. And
I always had as an image John Gremick. He was noted for his pressing, and he supposedly pressed 300 plus, and that was with rules and regulations. Not somebody in the gym said, "Oh, I saw it."
Right, he officially did that.
I think if you can do it on that basis, you follow the rules and do it, I think that's the way athletics should be comported.
Along the way, besides building equipment, building a great gym at Duncan, and building a great team, you also created a system that to this day still exists, which is PHA, peripheral heart action. Tell me the genesis of that.
Well, in the genesis, I would say anybody interested in it should get old copies of Iron Man magazine, because the thing sure was there. And I would say if it wasn't for the power of Arthur Jones coming in with his advertising brilliance, I mean, you got to give it to him on that. But that idea that one set and and beyond pain and smack yourself around and all that stuff had come on, and this was my kind of, it would be what a Bill Pearl would be recommending in terms of here are the exercises. Now my innovation was to do it in a circuit, not do a set, talk for 5 minutes and rest, but just to do it in a circuit, going from opposite and doing resets, doing all kinds of things. So after you've done 5 or 6 of these, the weight stays constant. You don't go down. So I proved that through experimentation and stuff. And I would say Perry Rader was the guy who said, you know what, this thing has 2 values. One, it has a cardiovascular effect. Okay, it's not riding a bicycle. It's not running on a treadmill. It has a cardiovascular effect and a body that follows it. I almost want to say Garanda.
Right, and it kind of,
you get a body besides, and my pulse rate and all that other stuff. I had a 47 pulse rate, for heaven's sakes. I got all the tests done to me that there were to get, and
I mean, I agree. When you were developing, especially in the early 70s, late 60s, I used those ideas, and I was absolutely amazed. It was probably the best overall physical condition I was ever in my
That
life.
was the point. Now, for older people, I mean, this is what I think they should do, as opposed to yoga. You twist your joints around into different cucumber-like positions. Makes no sense. But the idea of getting all the muscles working throughout the body as we get older, I think will mellow our senescence.
Well, I think it's kind of a functional strength that, especially if you're using free weights mostly, is also going to enhance balance. And it's and the two sides when you're doing dumbbells. I personally evolved the dumbbell. It helps to combat the effects of aging.
Yes. Well, there's so much evidence now. Everything I read. When I was a young guy, I thought that exercise was the answer to everything. I really did, man. Then I started to be skeptical and all that stuff. Now, as I'm reading the literature, I'm finding that's it. You don't need drugs. You just lift weights. You get anabolic effect from lifting weights.
It's interesting, and it's interesting because you brought up Vince Gironda and other pioneers here, because I'm saying that they're finally validating things that we've felt over the last 40 or 50 years.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. Look at right now, in terms of nutrition, the whole change in the mentality on just the subject, EGG, egg. How long have you and I continued to fight the battle and to keep the yolk soft? That was the whole provision, wasn't it?
Right. As little heat as low heat.
5 degrees in the Irvin Johnson, Rio H. Blair pan. Honest to God, this is as anabolic as you can get from what you can hear now. It's straight DHEA.
Right. Well, I mean,
Omega-6. It's an omega-6, but it's a good one.
I mean, the interesting thing is, as you say, the whole evolution of one very brilliant doctor that I knew from 40 years ago said that this whole cholesterol thing it's a measurement looking for a symptom. and he was 100% right.
Yeah. But by the same token, you remember all the oils came out when we were polyunsaturated, this and all. But the irony is those really weren't, because they were heated. As soon as they're heated, that takes it out. So they start. So that's where the lies in the industry have to be questioned. I mean, over the years. I mean, I was pounding soybean, and now I think that develops breasts. I mean, that's straight estradiol.
Yeah, it's an interest.
You can digest it.
Right. Well,
But the oil is straight estradiol.
Yeah.
And it's all the women's products. You go into any Walgreens or any pharmacy, all the women's products are soybean based. And now you hear this does not contain soybean, this does. And so these are all interesting kinds of things that are changing.
Again, I mean, we go back to the time when there was raw germ oil concentrates. How far ahead of that was? We didn't even know. We didn't know any of the unsaturated fatty acids. Those words didn't even exist for me, but we still used them. For some reason, we thought they were precursors.
Yeah, and they were. It's the fact that they were fabricated wrongly. I mean, this is where the thing went off. I mean, I used to pump Viabin and Prometol, and then what was the Soymanol was professional foods. That's Soymanol. But all of those things were heated, which negates their value today. They can't. And even in the cold pressing, they started saying cold press. There's still heat. So if you get it in the seeds, I do the seeds.
Yeah, or some kind of a
Grind the seeds and put it all over your salad.
The vacuum processing, or what I do, I literally take my protein drink and I put a handful of walnuts in it.
Yeah.
So I'm
grind
getting
it though.
Yeah, I grind it up. So,
Yeah.
That's been part of the evolution. We were on the right track, and most of what bodybuilding has, I'm going to say, learned from the 40s forward has now been validated in the 2000. But there's still a huge amount of just old wives' tales floating around that still refuse to die.
John, as long as I've known you've been a friend for a long time, I've always enjoyed these discussions. I cannot wait to hear what's the latest in the field. Now, Bill, but back in the 80s, I kind of got out of bodybuilding as a subject. I got more involved in this other sports, with the volleyball, traveling with the Olympic team and stuff like that. So when I have come back in, let's say in the last 5 years, it's an interesting culture.
Yeah, the culture has evolved, and let's go back to that time. In other words, right after Duncan, you left the YMCA system, and you went into teaching, and then you went on to more advanced degrees.
Yeah, public health and all that stuff.
Right. And then how did you, and you then started the various clinics for exercise. Let's take me
Right.
through that.
Yeah, I think we say 1978, going into the 80s, I had the Sports Fitness Institute in
Right,
Glen
that was
Ellen,
it.
Illinois, and it was all interesting because during that time that's when I worked with the Bears. I mean, the place was filled with professional athletes. It was a multi-purpose like you see nowadays. You get a little bit of this and a little of that. And we had Olympic lifting and powerlifting in the place. You don't see that now. They're all separated and went different ways.
Right. That's
But my idea was always to teach people how to do powerlifting correctly, how to do Olympic lifting correctly. Not necessarily to develop teams anymore, but over the years, learning the techniques.
yeah, the techniques. I'll call it the therapeutic
I think, and then you got to be super smart for Olympic lifting.
and super coordinated. You were also one of the. So that's really been your life here. The last 30 years has been devoted to helping people either rehab or get better as athletes.
Yeah, and I would say lately I'm in a lot of Medicare business. I mean most of my patients, God love them, they're all in their 70s, 80s, and I got to kind of get ribs working again and all sorts of things. I don't see I see young athletes, but I don't see young bodybuilders. I'm not in that
You're
stream.
more at that. Well, you have been. You made that
Yeah.
transition.
I've used bodybuilding as a therapeutic tool. What I've learned in bodybuilding, I've applied to people with certain kinds of scientific knowledge to back it up, as opposed to hearsay and notions of.
You've been on the cutting edge of besides PHA. The two other things that strike me as being always you've been on soapboxes for a long time and have now been proven correct is one on the use of stretching and the extent and the benefits of stretching, and also